Hello, you wonderful little marketing bees. You're tuned into episode 78 of the Marketing Buzzword Podcast.
This is the Marketing Buzzword Podcast, the podcast where we dissect the world's most common marketing buzzwords. Hold on tight. We are about to fly around the beehive to see the latest buzzwords that stuck to the marketing bees.
Hello again, and welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Buzzword Podcast. This is the podcast which helps you to understand what all of these business and marketing buzzwords actually mean and help you decide whether they're helpful or not going forward. I'm your host, Ben Roberts, and in this show, I'm the marketing bee in charge of making sure I can get on the right guests and ask the right questions to make sure that these words and phrases actually make sense. In today's show, we're going to make sense of the buzzword human connections. Before we do so, though, I need to let you know this podcast is powered by Talkative. Talkative is a company that brings together live web chat, voice calling, video calling, and co-browsing together in one package embedded into your website. No plugins, no downloads. It gives a much more seamless customer journey from the customer's end and a much more integrated journey on the agent end. You get more data and can provide a better customer service and improve your customer experience. Find out more at talkative.uk. And one final thing before we get on to this week's guest, if you are loving the show, please do feel free to leave a review on iTunes. It really does help boost the show's profile. It makes me feel a little bit good too, and it has helped me get on some of these amazing guests that I've had on in the past 78 episodes. So, that's more enough about me. It's time to introduce this week's guest. Now, this week's expert buzzword bee is a woman called I. She is awesome, and if you haven't seen her, you need to have a look. So, Dr. I. Addison Zhang is an educator and entrepreneur. She received her MA and PhD in communication studies respectively from, this is where I'm going to get this completely wrong, from Syracuse University and the University of Maryland in the United States. I has been teaching in higher education for more than a decade. Inside the classroom, I teaches public relations and social media classes at college level. Her speciality is in using social media and digital devices to enhance student engagement and learning outcomes. I believe that when this is used appropriately, digital media devices have the potential to create a classroom that is not confined by the physical walls. Outside of the classroom, I is a consultant, keynote speaker, blogger, and video content creator. She coaches educators, leaders, and executives to learn how to leverage social media and the digital tools to become effective and authentic storytellers, and to build communities and grow businesses by applying her 3C system, which is to gain clarity, credibility, and community. I's story has been featured in Forbes, Inside Higher Education, Pearson Education's ebook on digital learning, Mark Schaefer's Tower of Twitter, Deirdre Beckenridge's Answers for Modern Communicators. I is also a contributor to Entrepreneur and HubSpot Academy's social media certification. She has also appeared in numerous podcasts such as Women Worldwide, the Council of the Future Education radio show, HubSpot Teachers Lounge, Dr. Will Show Marketing Study Lab, Moving Forward, Getting Shit Done, Education on Fire, Seat at the Table, and most importantly, the Marketing Buzzword Podcast. So, that's more enough about me. It's time to get on with the show. Hi, and welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Ben.
Oh gosh, absolutely. The pleasure is well and truly mine. I think with everything that you're doing on social at the moment, I feel honoured to be able to even find the time for you to get you on the show.
Oh, you're too kind.
Oh no, honestly, it's an absolute treat, and I'm really intrigued about what we're going to talk about today. So we're talking about these human connections, and you're doing an amazing work. I mean, I'm boosting your ego massively here, but I know it's worth it. And talking about these human connections, because you, again, this is one of the things people have seen. You've had a massive rise in terms of your social media profile over a couple of years. And I know that a huge amount of that is down to human connections. So my first question is going to be to you is, How has all this started for you, and what role do you think human connections make in terms of social media and networking?
Yeah, that's such a great question. My social media journey is actually very short. I'm a late adopter of social media. I didn't really become active the way how I use social media today until March 2015. And even like at the time, I made lots of mistakes on my social media journey. And for example, I was really chasing after shiny objects. And every time, I still remember so clearly, like some of my friends, they were like, I'm starting an initiative, even though had nothing to do with my personal brand, with who I am, what I was trying to do. I was there. And or there was a new app. I was like, yeah, let's play with this app. What is this app about? I was really all over the place. And I didn't understand what I was doing, and I think my audience was also very confused about what I was doing. So, but I was definitely being human. So I think this concept of being human is really great, but just being human is not enough. You also need some sort of like strategies or tactics to go hand in hand with being human or being like social. We all agree that social media is like it's very, very time consuming, energy consuming. The first 2 years of my social media journey, frequently, the whole day, I didn't do anything. I was on social. I was being social. I was being human. I was very, very human. I was video chatting with this person. I was talking about food, recipe, sports, exercise. I spent 2 years being human, but my personal brand was not growing at all. And then after kind of like 2 years, so in April 2017, and our entire family relocated from Philadelphia in the United States to South Korea because of my husband's job. So this physical relocation was played such a big factor in my life, because changing my physical location also triggered a personal transformation and a professional transformation. I think because I stopped worrying so much about what others were talking about me, how others perceive me. I stopped caring so much about that. So I really started like creating content. I remember we came to Korea in April 2017, and I started blogging for the first time in my entire life, for the first time. So I started blogging in April 2017, and then I was just blogging daily. And then I became a top writer on social media and on Medium, in the category of social media on Medium. I was like, wow, this is so amazing. And I started to see how people are following me, as opposed to earlier, I was trying to find all those people to follow them. People start to come to me, and my content has become conversation starter. People come to me and they chat with me about my content. And in the same year, so May, I started blogging. And in June 2017, I launched a Facebook live show. And at the time, I had no idea what I was doing, but I kept going. And I think this year and even last year, I really started to see how producing long form of content is such a great way to build community and to develop my thought leadership. So you have to be human. At the same time, you also have to produce quality content to serve your audience. Just being human is not enough. That's why I created a system, but we can talk about that later. So that's kind of my long answer to your question.
No, I absolutely love that. And I mean, all these notes that I write down as you're talking, you're getting my mind going in a huge number of directions. And it's awesome, because one of the things I really loved is actually having the strategy for social and having the strategy for human connections, because I think it's really easy to be caught up in trying to have so many conversations. And actually, sometimes it's great to have just random conversations, because that's how we build rapport with people, how we talk about things that aren't always work related. But actually, look, when we work in the same industry, a lot of the work related stuff, it still helps build the rapport. And I know you and I are both involved in a huge number of conversations in terms of Twitter threads.
Actually, you know what? I'm the creator.
I know, exactly. And it's like we see my phone doesn't stop buzzing on. We've been added into this Facebook conversation recently about collaborators, and it's like my phone just doesn't stop vibrating. I'm pretty sure my phone just vibrates all the time now, which is amazing. But then it also really exacerbates that need that we need to have a strategy, because if we spend all the time just having those conversations, we would never get any work done, and actually people wouldn't know. So my question is then can
I just add one thing to that? Like, it's just so I resonated so much, because for the first 2 years of my social media journey, and I had no agenda in terms of how I was going to develop my brand or business. My agenda was person A's agenda, person B's agenda. So my life was controlled by others, by other people's social media activity. It was such a bad way if you are an entrepreneur, because let's face it, many of us, I still have a full-time job, and we only have so few hours. So either you spend all of your hours chatting with people, or you are actually doing some deep work that is actually moving your business forward. But I didn't see that when I started my social media journey, because of course, FOMO, fear of missing out. And I just didn't know. I didn't know how to approach social media strategically. Yeah. And I was under the impression, I was doing a great job. Look, every day I got like 100 notifications, and my followers are growing, like people are saying hi to me. Oh, those are vanity metrics. And they made me feel good. They boosted my ego, but in terms of like doing businesses or engage, bottom line and
So what's the actual outcome for you these days then? So and I guess for other people who are trying to build their personal brands, their business brands, they're trying to have these more human connections, which we all know now. It's great to have this rapport. So how do you know what the outcome is of this, and how do you go about achieving it? So think about it in terms of you personally. So now you've understood that you were having too many conversations. You had all these vanity metrics were growing, but actually your outcome wasn't being achieved. So what is your outcome now, and how are you looking at achieving that, and how do you advise other people achieve that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. As I mentioned, my social media journey is only 4 years. So the first half, like the first 2 years, I was basically making mistakes, paying my tuition. And I really started to see a big change after I started producing like content, especially last year. Like my Facebook show is growing and people started to see me. And last year I also got featured on Forbes. I became a contributor to Entrepreneur, and I also got featured in Mark Schaefer's book, The Tao of Twitter. I also collaborated with HubSpot. I developed a 35-page workbook for their social media certification, and also got invited to attend their conference. And I also got invited to like at least 20 podcast interviews this last year, and some of them are pretty big. Just all of those things started to happen. I was like, oh my God, what happened? I'm still the same person. Like I really started to think and try to like analyze my own personal brand. And that's how I shared with you earlier before we started recording. Like I developed a 3C system to help people like myself who are just starting out to gain clarity, credibility, and community. And I discovered, to really have your own community and authority, you cannot just being social or just being a human. That is good, but that is only one piece of the pie. You also have to do other things. So my 3C includes connect, which is like connecting with others, trying to be social, but you also have to connect with the right people. For example, the movers and shakers in your own field to get under their radar, so to speak, to get their attention. So connect. And the second C is contribute. And I'm not just talking about, hey, this is great, or oh yeah, just like really superficial conversations. I'm talking about deep level engagement. Okay, like for example, this year I'm being really active on LinkedIn, and I promise myself, if I see a good post, I'm going to write a very thoughtful, in-depth like comments and quality, not just quantity. Instead of saying, oh, I commented on 100 people's post, I rather reduce that number to maybe 10, but 10 really, really in-depth, insightful, and really well thought comments. And so that's the second C, which is to contribute to other people's other people's content. Like you can commenting, you can do videos. So I have different ways to contribute. And the third C, which is very important, I think is the most important one, is to create. I discovered you cannot build your authority without being a content creator. Because being a content creator, nowadays we use content to build trust with others. And not just superficial or shallow content, but really long form content, valuable content, and that can help your community. So you have to be connecting, you have to be contributing, and you have to be creating. You have to do all of the three in order to grow a community, in order to grow a strong brand. So reflecting on my own journey, the first 2 years, I was only connecting, not even contributing in a very meaningful way. I was just adding noise. I was all over the place, very random, doing all sorts of stupid things. I was connecting. I made lots of random connections. So that was a mistake. So yeah, connecting, contributing, and creating. And even for creating, and usually I also have different levels of content. So some content is just like lower level, lower quality, like that's kind of just noise, and you want to avoid from this type of content. And the middle level is like good, right? You have like on LinkedIn, I don't know if you notice, I start to really try to improve my storytelling, to think about my audience, to try to offer value every time when I post something, either do a video or long post. I want to ask myself two questions. The first is, why am I posting this? Right? How can my audience benefit from this post or piece of content? And the second question I ask myself is, what is my call to action? What do I want my audience to do after they read this, like whatever I write, or after they watch this piece of video? So that's kind of the two questions I ask. I think and then the highest level of content is like writing a book or start like a podcast on consistent basis, or launching a Facebook live show or YouTube show, like being very, very consistent. So that's how I kind of think in terms of becoming a content creator, like those different levels. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love this. And the main reason for that is, again, like yourself, I've come into this game quite late. So I started dabbling bits and pieces. I went to Social Media Marketing World 2016, started building connections, but really things didn't really... I made a lot of amazing connections, but I wasn't that involved in social, so it was trying to work out what I was doing. And then it was only in January of last, so literally just over a year ago, that things really took off for me, when I decided I was going to go all in and actually become a real creator, not just someone who shared stuff, not just someone who was just there and creating more noise. It was actually trying to create and add value and have more conversations, more discussions. And suddenly in this last sort of 13 months since I started this podcast, I now have done 77 episodes of this podcast. We started.
Congratulations! Congratulations!
Thank you. But this is the power. It's having these human connections, which have allowed me to get amazing guests on, like including yourself and all the other guests that have come on, and it's allowed me to do a second podcast, allowed me to speak in more opportunities. And I love that thing of what is your outcome, that strategy, that the 3C approach of where you're trying to collaborate, you're contributing, all this stuff in Connect. It's like it all ties in together, and actually, as long as you have an outcome. And then, so again, I love the bit where you said about the call to action. What do you actually want? What is the point in what you're doing? Yes, certain conversations. So I know the Twitter thread that we're involved in isn't necessarily a call to action, everyone, but we're there to help each other out, talk through different ideas and stuff. So that's our call to action there. That's more of a conversation. But then in other parts of the world, when we put a post on LinkedIn, actually we want necessary engagement. So when I put my videos, my personal branding story videos on there, I ask questions. That's what my call to action is on there. And the same thing with your ones. It's trying to actually think, yes, you can create human connections. You can have these real, these authentic, these trying to think of the word, basically not set criteria. You don't have to have a set motive for talking to everyone, but actually if you don't have an overall strategy, what is the point in making these connections? Because if you have got no way of advancing these connections, why are you doing it? Ultimately, we're on social media because we want to make more connections, because we either want more people on our podcast, we want to sell stuff, we want to do something. Well, otherwise, if we don't want to do anything, why are we doing it? Because you've got to have that end goal and look at, how am I adding value to people's lives? And I've loved that bit about human connections. I love that 3C approach you've built.
Exactly. And nowadays, I really changed. Like before, like when I was trying to promote, for example, my Facebook live show, I just came to LinkedIn, say something like, hey, check out this show or join me live. But nowadays, I try to do a different approach. I highlight the key points in this interview. So even if the person is not going to click on that link to check out the video, this person spending 1 minute reading my post can still gain something out of that post. So I try to do that and to really serve my audience instead of forcing them to consume certain piece of content. I just offer them different options. You choose however you want to consume the content and make life easier for them, to really think always in terms of my audience.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And
I don't know. Yeah.
And I think,
sorry to interrupt.
No.
I don't know if you noticed this. Just a quick story. Sometimes, on LinkedIn, I noticed that, like, I don't like it when people force me to watch their video. What I mean by that, like they will say, hey, I just chatted with this amazing person and he told me 3 points you have to do to make money online. For example, watch the video and learn the 3 points. Oh, I just hate that. I was like, come on, I couldn't watch a video right now. Can you just tell me what the 3 points are? And I just try to always remember, because I always work in a very quiet space. And I just couldn't watch videos all the time. And to be honest, it is a lot faster to read than watching videos.
Well, yeah, and it's something I'm finding as well, and it can be quite frustrating. I guess when I try to put my videos up as well, I try and like almost fill the post thing. So at least if people don't watch the video, they can at least get an idea for what you're talking about in the video without watching it. I mean, I've had an interesting discussion on LinkedIn about captions and how I've stopped using them, which is quite controversial in itself. But I'm trying to. It's not just about having the captions; it's about adding value. Where people don't even have to watch the video; they could find out if they want to watch the rest of the video.
Yeah, it is so interesting because everybody nowadays, including myself, everyone is producing like so many videos. But when I ask around, like many of my friends, like I don't watch videos, I just read the post. It is very interesting. How about you? I don't know. Like for me, I just read. Like even if there is like a video, I don't normally click on the videos.
I think it all depends. The reason is I find that LinkedIn video is already becoming quite saturated. So if it's someone who I've never seen do a video before and I don't know if they're going to give me any value or not, it's a waste of my time to go and watch that video. If I like, know and trust that person, I will watch the videos because I've seen them before and I know actually I'm going to get some value out of it, because there are so many videos on LinkedIn where it's just like, hey, this is my first video on LinkedIn, I'm really thank you for supporting me, and that's great. It's great that people are taking that step, but it's added no value to me. Yes, you can argue that this human connection, I go, oh yay, you good for you. That's amazing, because they are taking a really positive step. And maybe I should be less critical of that. But for me, I actually have to worry about my time as well, because if I commented on every single video that I saw like that, or watched every single video, read every single post, which I didn't know I was going to get value out of, I would never do anything myself. So you have to be more picky.
Amen.
And that's
exactly. I also love you mentioned, like, if you trust this person. I think that's the biggest thing in social media marketing with so much noise. And you feel like if you really trust this person, regardless of the format of the content, you want to consume this person's content, right? I'm the same. If I trust this person, if this is a blog post, I will read it. If it is a video, I will watch it. The same thing. I feel like so many marketers, they don't get this. They are just like bombarding everybody, every single person, like shouting and yelling, look at me, do this, watch my video. I was like, I'm not even your audience. Stop yelling at me. I just feel like...
That's amazing. It's amazing, because there are certain people who I won't even read their posts because they share some great value. And when they actually share their own stuff, I will pretty much like it or retweet it or share it without looking at it, because I like and I trust that person. I know
exactly.
that I said I don't even have to read. So someone like Mark Schaefer, let's take for example, I know that anything he writes, even if I agree with it or disagree with it, he's put a lot of thought and time into it. And that, I will happily share that because I like, know and trust Mark. And it's same with other people.
Absolutely.
Whereas if I see someone I've never seen before, it takes that time to build that rapport. And they wonder, why are random people not sharing my stuff? Because you've posted 3 videos and you haven't really added a lot of value. It takes time.
Exactly. I just recently interviewed Seth Godin, which is such a great honor. And he was talking about this permission economy, right? And he asked me this question, like, if you don't show up, and who are going to miss you? And for those people who are going to miss you, and you have their permission to kind of shout at them, to send content, because they are your believers. And his approach is only talk to those people who are trusting you, who are ready to receive your message, and let the believers to convert, so to speak, the non-believers. So stop yelling and shouting and sending your message on bombarding everybody's inbox, and only focus on the people who are your believers. This is exactly what you are talking about, because we trust Mark Schaefer. I do the same thing. Every time when he's like send out something, I just like share. I like it because I know he's good and he has my permission. But we don't have everybody's permission to do that, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, exactly. And this is something else, actually. Then this has got my mind going in another direction now. So I've been doing a lot of thinking when we talk about human connections and these permissions and sort of creating this strategy. Now, I know I've mentioned it maybe a few times to you, and you've probably picked up on it already. It's talking about this intersection between being more human and using technology. And one of the things that seems to be cropping up in my mind a lot is that us as marketers are very ironic. We're very good at saying all these nice things like be more human, make more meaningful connections, engage with your audience. We're great at saying that. And we're great, especially at the moment, we're like 2019 is the year of being more human. But yet, in the very same conversations, marketers will also say, make sure we get chatbots in at the moment. Now, this is really interesting because for me, as someone, my company is involved in human-based communications. This is like voice calling, video calling, and live web chat. So we're immersed in this human conversation. And I thought this is going to be amazing because marketers will be actually thinking, oh yes, maybe we do need these human-led conversations through companies. But actually, marketers are even more talking about chatbots. And it's just almost like an irony that people are like, we need to be more human, but we don't want to have conversations through our business. We want them to talk to a chatbot. So what are your thoughts and experiences around this being more human phenomenon that we're seeing, and actually how that intersects and works with technology? Because I'm finding it's just really quite ironic at the moment.
Oh, I so agree with you. I think chatbots maybe came out, I think a few years ago. There was like 1 year I went to social media examiner. I just felt like every single session was about chatbot. So I did give this a try. I implemented. I started using my chatbot. I used Mobile Monkey and all those things. And then I started to receive messages from people, especially those people who do not know me yet. They're like, "Oh my God, this is like too much," because I serve a few different segments of audiences, like college professors and entrepreneurs and students. And so I was just like asking them to select their categories and how I can serve them. Like, there's so many questions. I literally had a few people telling me, this is like too much. I'm just like, you are driving me crazy. I don't even know why am I even like chatting with you. Or they already forgot about their original agenda when they were trying to get a hold of me, because I'm just like bombarding them with whatever message I was just like setting up. And so I just turn it off. Nowadays, when people contact me, when they click on, get started, it is me. I'm actually talking to them. And I like this approach a lot better. It just works for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of those things, is trying to find, I guess it's that balance, isn't it, between implementing new technologies and being more human. The principles of being human are there, but we also need to understand that we're in a technologically driven world. And actually, businesses need to understand is, if everyone is contacting you and you have more complex queries, if it's simply a booking system, a chatbot is amazing, because actually that doesn't need to speak to a human. But actually, where people want to ask questions about live streaming, they want to ask questions about your work and stuff, it's actually, why would you not want to have those conversations? Because these are actually, we know we talked about earlier about these meaningful conversations and being really strategic. Mm-hmm. These are people that have gone to your flipping website. They want to talk to you. They want to find out more. And you've gone, I want to put a chatbot in the way before you speak to me, because I want to know if you're actually interested. Well, they've gone to your website, and this is one of those things. I think that this human connection is. We are going to struggle. Yes, people have said it's the year of being human, but people have thought about being human on social media in terms of posts and conversations and authentic video. Exactly. But they haven't necessarily thought about it in a wider strategic view.
Exactly. I so agree. And I also agree, this is also depending on industries. Like for me, I'm a solopreneur, and I'm just like, the way I have built my brand is by really cultivating one-on-one connections, and very organic and authentic way. And actually, people really appreciate that. I don't know if people are already tired of chatbots, but people I frequently, like for my Facebook live show, and if I know this person, like I know my community's interest. So for example, like we are doing, I think last Wednesday we did an episode on video marketing. And I knew a few people in my audience, they are very passionate about this topic. So I actually manually sent them a message. Hey, Nikki, like I know you're interested in this, and this is what we're talking about on Wednesday. Come join us if you are interested. And people really, really appreciate that. Some people even tell me, I really appreciate you are sending me a personalized message, not a bot, And I think people recognize that, because as marketers, I'm so tired of all the spam messages. Sometimes they don't get my name right, or sometimes they call me Chris. Sometimes it's first name. So I'm just tired of that. I think everybody is the same. And when you are actually being authentic, and I know you're interested in this, I'm just having a conversation with you, which is a lot more time consuming for sure. But that is my way. It works.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's time consuming, but it is actually personalized. Like putting an automated email together, which it automatically insert first name here, isn't personalized. Yes, it's got their name on it, but it's not really personalized. And this sort of, what you just mentioned there actually has got me thinking. This is why I love doing this podcast, because you're making you're stretching my own mind here. And you message people individually. Now, How do you as someone who is a creator in the industry judge when you are able to start messaging people about other things? So at the moment, you talked about this permission marketing. So at the moment, you know that if you post stuff, some people will pay attention, some people won't. Now, essentially, when you message someone like that, that's almost a sales message. Although you're not asking them to necessarily buy anything, you're going out there saying, I want you to come onto my Facebook Live and watch my Facebook. I want you to take action on something. So how do you balance? When you're trying to create these human connections, you're trying to have these real conversations, how do you know when it's the right time to message someone and say, actually, look, now we've been speaking for a while, it's now time for you to buy my product, come onto my webinar, view my live stream, something like that? How do you personally judge when you've got that level of connection right that you can start asking people to do things?
Yeah, such a great question. Because I really invest in time, energy, and effort to get to know my community. And if I contact this person, it is because I know this person is going to benefit from this content and is interested in this content. And people actually appreciate that. I'm not just like reaching out to random people like whom I have just connected and, hey, check out my Facebook live show. I know I personally don't like that. If I just connect with this person and the second message I get from this person is say, hey, I'm doing this and that, check it out as well. Turn off.
Exactly, like the amount of LinkedIn connections. I've literally just connected with you and you go, hi Ben, it's great to meet you, great to have you in my connections. Oh, by the way, in case you're interested, here's a link to my course or anything. Why would I do that?
There's no in case. Exactly. We should do the same. In case you don't know, I hate this type of approach. Exactly.
So
I really get to know. And also when I was chatting with Seth Godin, and he mentioned this concept of empathy and practical empathy. So what he talks about is that you really invest in time and energy to get to know your audience, and to the extent that you really understand what they need, and you only offer what they need. And for example, if they come to you and they are asking for something from you, hey, can you teach me how to do Google Analytics? And you don't pretend that you knew this. And instead, you say, okay, I really care about you. I want you to succeed in life. And you know what? This person is actually really good at this. And you have come to the wrong person. Let me introduce you or walk you to that store to help you, because I know that person is going to benefit you. So I think that's the level we want to achieve, right? Like for me, I try to do that. If I know this person is going to benefit from my content, I reach out to this person. Even that, like I truly appreciate people regardless of they come to my show or not, because I'm just thinking about myself, right? I cannot come to every single episode of others' Facebook Live show. Otherwise, I can spend my whole day just watching people's Facebook Live, right?
Exactly. Like, there are so many. There are so many shows out there, aren't there? Again, we have to be more strategic. Yes, we can be more human, but actually, if we're not strategic, then we end up wasting time. And actually, we want to make sure that we have to get something out of it ourselves, but also we want to make sure that we're there for other people. So I know in these conversations,
so like
I'm
just asking myself, if I couldn't do that myself, supporting every single content creator, why do I ask others to come to my show? And I always make sure to tell them, hey, I think you can benefit from this. Come join us live. If not, no worries. I appreciate you. And I really, I think people can tell I'm not just faking it. I truly care about them. And also another thing I do is on Twitter that I have I created a private list of my Facebook community fans, people who have come to my show before, who support me, who benefit from my content. And I monitor their content. I don't just talk to them when I need them to come to my show. I think that's really bad. And I actually care about them, chat with them, and hey, how are you? And say hi to them without any agenda. And I think to me, that is marketing.
Yeah.
You either spend hundreds of dollars, hire someone, or really invest in time to study Facebook ads to do marketing, or I invest that time and energy and money in really getting to know my audience. To me, I'm doing marketing, right? I'm trying to get to know my audience, and people really appreciate that.
No, I absolutely love that. I think that's an amazing way to sort of wrap up the show, isn't it? It's trying to find what works for you and actually understanding that spending time having these conversations is marketing. It's you understanding.
Also add to that, I think nowadays where everyone is trying to become a content creator, and we just need to understand that it is a lot harder to rise above the digital noise. Just because you have created content, but as Mark Schaefer mentioned, how did he say it? The economic value of content that is now shared is zero. I truly agree. And you really need to find people who can move your piece of content around. And with that, you really have to invest in your communities. In Marketing Rebellion, Mark Schaefer mentioned that 2/3 of marketing is not under our control. It's like other people are talking about you. So you really want to create ways to allow other people to talk about you. So I think that's another change I started to see in terms of my personal brand. When I started my journey, I was just mainly talking about myself. But nowadays, other people are talking about me, which is such a great feeling. But then on the other hand, if you don't invest in getting to know them and serve them and offer them good content, nobody's going to talk about you positively. Like for my Facebook Live show, people who come to my show, almost every single episode, I can see a few tweets coming out from people in my community sharing my content and saying how much they love this, benefited this. And I truly appreciate those people. I think there were a few times I even cried. Just really, I was faking it. I just feel like really touched by how much they have supported me. And I just like appreciate them, thank you economy, right? Gary Vee talks about this. Thanks them because I have earned their permission, and they trust me, I trust them, and thank them.
And that is what the human connection is all about. And that's essentially breaking it down, which is what I want to do in each of these episodes, is really breaking down what these terms mean. So when people hear the term human connection, they've listened to this podcast, they will literally go, okay, now I really understand. I has absolutely summarised that perfectly, and I think you absolutely have, I. So thank you so much for your time today. That's been brilliant.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
No, that's all right. But before I let you go, you haven't quite got away scot-free yet. So before I let you go, I need to ask you the question that I ask everyone at the end of each of these shows. So, what other marketing buzzwords are you loving or hating right now? What are you going, yes, this is an awesome term, and what are you going, no, I wish people would stop saying this term?
Yeah, I actually, before we started the conversation, I had a different answer than the answer I'm going to share with you now.
Ooh, intriguing.
So I think, it's very interesting because our conversation also made me think. I think the word that I love and hate the most is actually the same one, which is be more human or be human. I love it because nowadays all of us, we are bombarded by automated messages, chatbots, my email inbox. I just so much junk. I actually had to apply a new email inbox so that I can actually receive important messages because my other one is just too much junk. I don't even check. And so I think we all need to try to adopt this be more human approach. On the other hand, why I'm also hating this word, because like I mentioned before, just being human is not enough. So many of us, we have this FOMO, fear of missing out. And I suffered from that, maybe even nowadays, for so long. And because you really have to, you want to be human, at the same time, you also have to think about your own agenda, right? Like for me, I spent 2 years being human, but my brand is not going anywhere. I'm not making any money, and my business is now growing, and I was being human, very, very human, too human. That was my problem. So I really think you have to really do what works for you. And everybody's industry is different. Everybody's personality is different. and everything I shared with you, it just comes naturally. Maybe the same approach will not work for you, right? Because you're different. Like we were talking about this, how our personality, even how we host a show, is different. If you are writing like a guide to host a podcast, is going to be very different from my guide, right? Before this you need to do ABC, during this you do DFE and all those things, but it both works, right? So I think you have to really figure out a way that works for you. Find a good balance between being human and being not human. Because let me tell you, Seth Godin, he does not do any social media engagement at all. Zero. I asked him, I was like, is that intentional? He was like, very intentional. So that's his approach, right? And there's really no cookie cutter approach. I figure out a way that works for me to have this good balance, and you need to do the homework to figure out a way that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And again, like there's no such thing as like a best practice guide or something, because again, like you said, if we talked about this before we went live, the way I do my podcast is a lot more ad hoc. I write the questions down as we go along, and I basically draw a spider diagram with different ideas, whereas you have a lot of set questions, because that works more for you and that helps focus your mind and your questions to make sure you get the value. And I do it this way because I feel like I can get value from doing it this way. And so if we were a best practice guide, our best practices guide, because I'd say we were both doing well in our own industry and what we want to achieve, but actually a best practice guide from either of us would be completely different.
Exactly. And actually, if you really think about this, if everybody is having a best practice guide and everybody starts to copy each other, and then it becomes noise again, right? The reason we hated email like marketing so much, I never actually click on any of my emails other than only a few people, like maybe 3 people. The rest of them, I don't ever click. And then it just becomes noise, right? When people start to copy and perpetuate all those best practices, you need to start to reinvent what is the next best practice. So in a way that if you really want to thrive in this business, just keep going. You just have to constantly figure out what works for you and reinventing yourself, and deconstructing the best practices and reconstructing new ones all the time. Otherwise, you will be like submerged under the noise.
Exactly. Can't agree anymore. Faye, thanks so much for coming on today. It's been an absolute blast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Ben. Truly honored.
Oh, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
I was so happy when I managed to be able to get on the show, and wow, it did not disappoint. We've covered a few previous guests. It's also been amazing for talking about this human connection. One of the most prominent ones was back in episode 11, I think, with Brian Kramer, talking about the humanization and being more human. And I love sort of development on that with this 3C approach. And actually, I'm a huge advocate of actually being more strategic. Yes, be human, but actually being strategically human, because we can't be in all places at once. We can't always be having conversations. We can't always be building relationships. We have to get stuff done. And actually, sometimes you'll be having these random conversations, which are great maybe for building a little bit of a rapport with someone. But actually, if they still don't know what you do, they don't know why you do it, it doesn't really make sense. So I got so much out of this interview. I hope you did too. And again, if you did enjoy the show, please do leave a review on iTunes. I really do appreciate it. And make sure you use any hashtag Marketing Buzzword on Twitter or LinkedIn or anything. And please do let me know if you want any other buzzwords to be covered, or you know anyone else who might be great at that. So, thank you very much for listening. I'll be back next week to debunk a new marketing buzzword. Goodbye.
This podcast is part of the You Are the Media Network.